Section 1. The Administrative Intake and the Logistics of Secrecy. The year is 1945, but we are not looking at the front lines. We are looking at a desk. A gray steel desk in a windowless office in Maryland. On this desk sits a stack of manila folders, specifically the standard 9 by 12-inch heavyweight stock, 11-point thickness, with the reinforced tabs. You can hear the sound of the paper sliding against the wood. This is the beginning of the administrative shadow. When Project Paperclip began, it was not a matter of grand speeches. It was a matter of ink and paper. Thousands of personnel action forms, specifically Standard Form 50, were being processed by clerks who were told not to read the names, only the serial numbers. Imagine the scratching of a fountain pen, a Parker 51 perhaps, filled with permanent quink ink, marking approved over the records of men who, months prior, were working in the secret laboratories of Peenemund. The documents themselves have a specific scent. It is the smell of old cellulose, the faint metallic tang of carbon paper, and the dust of a basement archive. As you listen, imagine the filing cabinets, row after row of green enameled steel. The drawers click open with a heavy, lubricated slide. Inside, the folders are organized by the Dewey Decimal of the damned. Notice the paper clips. These were not the rounded gem clips we use today. They were the temporary, pointed wire clips that bit into the paper, leaving small rust indentations that remain 70 years later. These clips held together more than just paper. They held together a reconstructed reality. For every scientist brought over, there was a ghost file, a secondary folder that did not technically exist in the main index. As we look deeper into the 100 series files, we find the housing requisition logs, boring, repetitive lists of addresses in Huntsville, Alabama, and El Paso, Texas. List after list. 1202 Maple Street, 443 Oak Lane, 892 Desert Road. The monotony of the addresses is meant to lull the observer, but if you look at the margins, the white space where the clerks were not supposed to write, you see the penciled in notations. Small, geometric symbols, strange Greek letters like delta or omega, placed next to the names of men who specialized not in rockets, but in atmospheric displacement. The ink on these forms is slightly faded now, turning a dull charcoal gray. It is the color of a dream that is being forgotten. Each name processed represented a soul, transferred from one ledger to another. The bureaucracy was the blindfold. If the form was filled out correctly, if the stamp was level, if the signature was legible, the past ceased to exist. We move now from the desks of Maryland to the transit logs of the naval vessels, the United States Ship Reaper, the steamship Argentina. These ships did not just carry people, they carried crates. Thousands of crates marked technical equipment, do not open. The manifests for these crates are hundreds of pages long. We will read them now. Item 402, one brass casing, non-magnetic. Item 403, 3 glass vials, vacuum sealed. Item 404, 1 leather-bound ledger, handwritten, language unidentified. The ship's log for December 14th, 1945, notes a strange calm in the Atlantic. The water was like glass. The sailors reported that the compasses in Section 7 began to spin slowly in a clockwise direction, even though the ship remained on a true heading of 270 degrees. The clerks recorded this as a minor equipment malfunction in the official report, but in the private logs they described the sound of the crates, a low, rhythmic thrumming that matched the heartbeat of the men sleeping in the bunks below. Section 2. The Huntsville Blueprints, the geometry of the unseen. We move our focus now to the drafting tables of Huntsville, Alabama. The air in these rooms was thick with the scent of graphite and ammonia from the blueprint machines. These are the records of the Redstone Arsenal, specifically the engineering annexes of 1952 and 1953. To the casual observer, these are merely technical drawings of propulsion systems, but the sheer volume of the documentation tells a different story. Imagine a blueprint. It is a deep Prussian blue, covered in fine white lines. Each line is drawn with a 0.5mm technical pencil. We are looking at folder 6-beta. This folder contains the schematics for what was officially termed auxiliary cooling vents, but the measurements do not align with any known thermodynamic requirement. The primary diagram is labeled Figure 12.4. It depicts a central cylinder measuring 48.6 centimeters in diameter. Surrounding this cylinder are 16 copper coils. Each coil is wrapped exactly 888 times with silver-plated wire. The notes in the margin, written in cramped block lettering, specify that the wire must be drawn at a temperature of exactly 68 degrees Fahrenheit to maintain its vibrational integrity. As we scan the list of materials for the housing assembly, the monotony becomes a weight. Item 1, Grade 3 aluminum alloy. Item 2, synthetic mica sheets, 0.005 inches thick. Item 3, non-reactive mercury, triple, distilled, weighing 14.7 kilograms. The mercury is listed under ballast, but the plumbing diagrams show it circulating in a closed-loop system that passes through a series of gold-lined chambers. The flow rate is recorded as 333 milliliters per second. There is no explanation for why a rocket engine would require a circulating liquid metal core. Notice the way the blueprints are numbered. They do not follow a linear sequence. We go from page 99 to page 101. Page 100 is missing from every declassified set. In its place is a white insertion sheet stating that the material has been removed under Executive Order 10,450. However, if you look at the stress analysis reports from June of 1954, you find the missing data in the form of mathematical anomalies. The engineers were recording a negative mass coefficient during static fire tests. They wrote down numbers like negative 0.0047 grams. In a world of physics, mass cannot be negative. But in the quiet, fluorescent-lit halls of Huntsville, these numbers were filed away in gray cabinets, under the heading, Discrepancy Reports. The draftsmen worked in shifts, 8 hours a day, 5 days a week. They drew thousands of these circles within circles. Each circle represents a magnetic field. Each field represents a layer of reality being peeled back. The sound of the electric sharpeners and the sliding of the T-squares creates a rhythm, a steady hypnotic pulse. Slide, mark, erase. Slide, mark, erase. We find a set of handwritten notes by an unnamed technician dated August 22, 1955. The note describes the hissing sound of the blueprints when they were placed near the high-voltage generators. He describes the paper standing on end. He describes the blue ink turning a vivid, glowing purple for a fraction of a second. This report was never filed in the official record. It was found tucked inside a manual for industrial boiler maintenance. Section 7 of the Huntsville Annex focuses on optics and refraction. It lists orders for high-purity quartz lenses, polished to a tolerance of 1/1,000,000th of an inch. These lenses were not for cameras. They were not for telescopes. They were ordered for Project Looking Glass, a sub-department with a budget of $0 a ghost department, a hole in the ledger where the money simply vanished. As you drift deeper into the blueprint, the lines begin to blur. The blue of the paper becomes the blue of a midnight sky. The white lines become the trajectories of objects that do not follow the laws of inertia. The bureaucracy has documented the impossible, one boring, technical measurement at a time. Section 3. The medical vetting records. The biological discrepancy. As the blueprints were filed away in Huntsville, a different set of documents was being generated in the medical wings of White Sands and Fort Bliss. These are the personnel health summaries, specifically the Series 6000 medical dossiers. On the surface, they appear to be routine physical examinations of the imported technical staff. They are recorded on pale yellow paper with faint blue horizontal lines, each entry dated and stamped by the Office of the Surgeon General. We look first at the baseline vitals. In the autumn of 1946, a series of peculiar trends began to emerge in the records of 34 specific researchers. The first anomaly is found in the basal body temperature column. The standard human average is 98.6 degrees Fahrenheit. However, the logs for Subject 109 show a consistent morning temperature of 96.2 degrees. By 1948, this had dropped to 95.0. There is no mention of fever, no mention of chills. The doctor's note simply reads, "Subject appears acclimated." We move to the ocular examination sheets. This is where the bureaucracy becomes truly dense. There are thousands of entries regarding pupillary response times. In a standard exam, the pupil constricts in less than 0.5 seconds when exposed to a direct light source. For the scientists assigned to the Advanced Propulsion Division, the response times began to lag. Record dated March 12, 1949. Subject 042. Pupil dilation remains fixed at 4 millimeters despite exposure to high-intensity halogen. Subject reports no discomfort. Subject states they can see the hum of the examination lamp. The medical clerks recorded these statements without emotion. To a clerk, a statement is just a string of characters to be transcribed. They recorded the auditory range tests on Form 88. Standard human hearing caps at 20,000 hertz, but the charts for the Paperclip staff show a strange expansion. The graphs show the subjects responding to frequencies at 35,000 hertz, 40,000 hertz, and eventually 60,000 hertz. This is the range of a bat. This is the range of a machine. The blood chemistry reports are even more tedious to read, yet more unsettling. We look at the levels of copper in the hemoglobin. In a normal sample, copper levels are approximately 100 micrograms per deciliter. In these specific dossiers, the copper levels began to rise steadily over a 5-year period. 150, 210, 340. The blood was not turning blue, but its electrical conductivity was increasing by 400%. Imagine the sound of the blood pressure cuff, the rhythmic pump of the rubber bulb, the hiss of the air escaping, squeeze and release, squeeze and release. In the sleep observation logs of 1951, the data becomes sparse. The nurses in the high-security wing of Brooke Army Medical Center recorded that the subjects did not appear to enter rapid eye movement sleep. Instead, they entered a state the doctors labeled static quiescence. During these periods, the brainwave monitors, the electroencephalograms, did not show alpha or beta waves. They showed a flat, continuous line at exactly 7.83 hertz. This is the frequency of the Earth's own ionosphere. The subjects were not dreaming, they were tuning. There is a final, boring detail in the dental records section. For several of the senior physicists, the X-rays show a thickening of the jawbone, but with a porous, honeycomb structure that the radiologist could not identify. One entry from a Captain Miller, dated November 3rd, 1952, notes, "Subject's bone density is fluctuating based on the proximity of the laboratory's power grid. Requesting new X-ray machine. Current unit appears to be malfunctioning." The request for a new machine was denied due to budget constraints. The old machine continued to take images that showed the scientists' skeletons fading in and out of focus, as if they were made of smoke rather than calcium. These images are still in the files. They are filed under equipment failure, because the alternative that the men were physically changing was not a category available in the government filing system. Section 4. The Fort Bliss Night. Watch logs. The desert silence. We move now from the clinical halls of the medical wing to the perimeter of the testing grounds. These are the security logbooks of the Fort Bliss Military Reservation, specifically the Night Watch entries from 1947 to 1951. These logs are bound in black imitation leather. The pages are thick, off-white, and marked with the stamp of the Department of the Army. The entries are written by men with names like Miller, Higgins, and Sutherland. They were not scientists. They were observers of the mundane. Their job was to record the fence line, the gate status, and the weather. Entry dated October 12th, 1947. 0100 hours. Guard Higgins reporting. Weather is clear. Visibility is 20 miles. Wind is 0 knots. All perimeter lights in Sector 4 are operational. No unauthorized movement detected. The repetition is the point. Every 4 hours a new entry. 0500 hours. Weather is clear. Wind is 0 knots. Security is maintained. But as the weeks turn into months, the logs begin to mention the silence. Not a standard silence, but a heavy silence. In June of 1948, Guard Sutherland wrote a memorandum for his commanding officer regarding the local fauna. He noted that the crickets and cicadas would cease their noise exactly 3 minutes before the scheduled engine tests at the North Range. This is a standard observation. However, he noted that the silence would then spread. It would move inward from the perimeter fence, like a wave, until it reached the guard shack. Inside that circle of silence, the guards' wristwatches would lose exactly 4 seconds of time every hour. The logs record the atmospheric phenomena under the heading of weather anomalies. Entry dated August 3rd, 1949, 0200 hours. Guard Miller reporting. Observed a stationary glow over Hangar 18. Color is described as electric violet. The glow does not cast a shadow on the sand. Wind is 0 knots. The guard did not report an unidentified flying object. He reported a lighting malfunction. This was the protocol. If you saw something that defied the laws of physics, you filed it under maintenance. In the autumn of 1950, the logs began to describe the star displacement events. Guard Higgins noted that while the sky was clear, the constellations in the northern quadrant appeared to be rearranged. He wrote that the Big Dipper appeared to have an extra star in the handle, and that Orion's belt was vertical instead of diagonal. He checked his vision with the base medic. His vision was 20/20. He checked the stars again at 0400 hours. They had returned to their standard positions. He recorded this in the log as optical haze due to heat shimmer. Heat shimmer in the desert at 4 in the morning in November. Imagine the sound of the guards' boots on the gravel. Crunch, crunch, crunch. The sound of the wind whistling through the chain link fence. There are entries regarding the ozone smell. Every Tuesday at 0300 hours, the air around the perimeter would smell of a thunderstorm, even when the humidity was at 3%. This smell was so strong it would turn the brass buttons on the guards' uniforms a dull green within a single shift. The supply sergeant's records show a 300% increase in the requisition of brass polish for the night watch crew. No explanation was ever requested. Section 9 of the logbook contains the visitor logs for the back gate, gate number 12. This gate does not appear on the official maps of the base. The logs show a series of black sedans entering at 0045 hours and exiting at 0300 hours. The license plates are not recorded. Instead, the driver identification column contains a series of 10-digit codes. 1001001001001 2002002. The guards were instructed not to look into the rear windows of these vehicles. One guard, a private first class named Elias, wrote a frantic note in the margin of the December 1951 log. He wrote, The car was empty. I opened the door to check the pass, and there was no one in the driver's seat. The steering wheel was not moving, but the car turned the corner perfectly. The next page of the logbook has been neatly cut out with a razor blade. The following entry is dated 3 days later. It is written in a different handwriting. It says, "Weather is clear. Visibility is 20 miles. Wind is 0 knots. Security is maintained." Section 5. The logistics of the black budget. The weight of the ledger. We shift our focus now from the desert floor to the procurement ledgers. This is the paper trail of the unvouchered funds. In the world of government accounting, these are known as the black budgets. These are the documents that do not exist in the public record, yet they required thousands of hours of clerical labor to maintain. We are looking at the requisition forms from the 1950s, specifically Department of Defense Form 1348. Imagine a warehouse, a space so large the far wall is lost in a gray haze. The floor is polished concrete, marked with yellow lines. Every item in this warehouse has a national stock number, a 13-digit code that tracks its journey from the manufacturer to the void. We begin with the metal and alloy procurement logs. Item entry, October 19th, 1952. National stock number 9510002294481. Description: beryllium spheres, high purity, grade 1. Quantity: 500 units. Destination: Site 4, Nevada. Beryllium is a rare earth metal. It is lighter than aluminum and stronger than steel. It is also highly toxic when machined. The records show that for every sphere delivered, the government also ordered 1 pair of lead-lined gloves and 1 industrial-grade respirator. But as you follow the ledger, the orders for the respirators stopped, while the orders for the beryllium spheres tripled. By 1954, the government was ordering 10,000 units a month. Next, we look at the liquid logistics reports. These are the records of the tank trucks that traveled only at night, with no markings on their sides. Item entry, February 4th, 1953. Description: triple. Distilled red mercury. Volume: 2,000 gallons. Storage requirements: constant agitation. Temperature maintained at -40 degrees Fahrenheit. Note: material is sensitive to magnetic resonance. Do not park near power lines. The budget for this single shipment was $4 million in 1953 currency. This is roughly the cost of an entire fleet of fighter jets at the time. Yet, on the ledger, it is filed under janitorial supplies and solvents. The clerks were trained to ignore the price tags and focus only on the stamps. The isotope schedules follow. These pages are marked with a red stripe across the top right corner. Item entry, June 11th, 1954. Description: heavy water, deuterium oxide. Source: secreted from the Savannah River plant. Volume: 500 liters. Item entry, July 2nd, 1954. Description: bismuth, 209. Quantity: 100 kilograms. Bismuth is a strange metal. It is the most naturally diamagnetic element, meaning it is repelled by magnetic fields. In these documents, the bismuth is not being used for medicine or fire sprinkles. It is being ordered alongside high-frequency oscillators and vacuum-sealed ceramic tubes. As you listen to the list, imagine the shipping crates. They are made of a dense, dark wood, reinforced with steel bands. They are heavy, heavier than their size would suggest. Crate serial number, Alpha 794. Weight, 800 pounds. Contents: 1. Stabilization core. Origin: unknown. Consignee: Project Gleam. Project Gleam was a subledger of a subledger. It had no office. It had no staff. It only had a budget. We see the purchases for this ghost project. 3,000 yards of copper mesh. 12 industrial-sized cooling fans. 400 pounds of unspecified synthetic crystals. The final pages of the 1955 budget contain the disposal manifests. This is where the bureaucracy tries to hide its mistakes. These manifests list items that were expended or rendered inert. Item: 1 titanium alloy fuselage, experimental. Status: lost during atmospheric testing. Location: coordinate data redacted. Item: 12. Bio: physical sensors. Status: terminated due to data saturation. The list goes on and on. 5,000 gallons of liquid nitrogen, 200 Geiger counters, 1,000 privacy agreements for civilian witnesses. Each item is a grain of sand in a mountain of secrets. The paperwork is so dense that the truth is buried beneath a layer of pure, boring logistics. The numbers become a hum. The quantities become a blur. 400 units, 800 pounds, 6,000 gallons, $1 billion, zero accountability. The ledger remains open, the ink dry, the secrets filed away in a drawer that was never meant to be opened. Section 6. The photographic evidence logs. The blurred reality. We turn now to the visual archives. These are not the glossy photographs found in history books. These are the technical evaluation prints, stored in protective mylar sleeves within the visual records annex of the 1950s. Each photograph is accompanied by a photo analysis sheet, documenting the lens type, the exposure time, and the unexplained artifacts that appeared during development. The first set of records comes from the high-speed cameras at White Sands, 1948. These cameras were capable of capturing 1,000 frames per second. Photo log item 772-Bravo. Subject: static test of propulsion unit 4. Exposure time: 1/1000th of a second. Analysis: the subject is centered in the frame. However, the background, the San Andres Mountains, appears to ripple. The granite peaks show a wave-like distortion, as if viewed through a lens of water. The technician noted that the mountain shifted 3 inches to the left in the frame, while the foreground remained stationary. This is labeled as lens aberration, but the lens was a fixed focus Zeiss with no moving parts. Next, we look at the incident photos from the night of July 14th, 1950. Photo log item 811-Charlie. Subject: Sky Quadrant 4, 0300 hours. Film type: infrared sensitive, 35mm. Analysis: the photograph is meant to show the stars. Instead, it shows a series of dark, geometric shadows carved out of the starlight. They are perfect black triangles, with no reflective surfaces. They do not appear to be objects so much as holes in the sky. The analyst's note in the margin says, film appears to be reacting to a non-thermal light source, suggesting a chemical reaction within the emulsion itself. Imagine the sound of the darkroom, the rhythmic dripping of the developer solution, the hum of the red safety light, the smell of acetic acid and silver nitrate. Photo log item 903-Delta. Subject: interior of hangar 18, 1950. 2. Note: unauthorized exposure. Analysis: this photo was taken accidentally by a security guard when his camera fell from his shoulder. It captures the floor of the hangar. In the corner of the frame, there is a blur. It is not a blur of movement, but a blur of probability. The edges of the object in the corner appear to be in 3 places at once. It looks like a staircase that leads nowhere, or a pillar made of frozen smoke. The shadow it casts is not pointing away from the light, but toward it. The records move on to the biological documentation photos. Photo log item 1004-Echo. Subject: X-ray of component alpha. Date: October 3rd, 1953. Analysis: the X-ray plate shows a metallic structure that looks like a human nervous system. It is made of a gold-platinum alloy, but it has no welds, no screws, and no seams. It appears to have been grown rather than manufactured. When the photo was developed, the technician found his own fingerprints burned into the image, even though he was wearing protective lead gloves. The final set of documents in this annex are the redaction prints. These are photographs that have been blacked out with heavy, industrial ink. We read the descriptions of what is supposed to be there. Image description: view of the cockpit, 1954. The image is entirely black. Image description: recovery of the desert debris, 1955. The image is entirely black. Image description: group photo of the Special Projects team. The image is entirely black, except for the boots of the men at the very bottom of the frame. The analysts spent hundreds of hours documenting these failures. They measured the light leaks. They measured the emulsion drift. They filled out Form 9A for every ruin negative. They turned the impossible into a technical error. They turned the truth into a processing malfunction. As you listen, the images in your mind become like these photos, blurred at the edges, fading into the gray background of the archive. The details are there, just out of focus, hidden behind a layer of boring administrative failure. Section 7. The Maintenance Manuals for Device X. The Physics of Tedium. We move now to the most restricted shelf in the archive. This is not a file of secrets, but a file of instructions. It is the Technical Manual for Device X, officially designated as Non-Standard Recovery Item 004. The manual is bound in a heavy, flame-retardant blue canvas cover. The pages are reinforced with mylar at the punch holes to prevent tearing from frequent use. To the technicians of 1954, this was not an object of wonder. It was a piece of equipment that required constant, mundane maintenance. We begin with the general handling specifications. Subsection 1.1. Weight and mass variance. Device X has a nominal rest mass of 412.4 kilograms. However, the manual notes that this weight is subject to fluctuational drift based on the local sidereal time. Technicians are instructed to recalibrate the hydraulic lifts every 4 hours to account for the device becoming lighter or heavier. When the mass drops below 10 kilograms, the device must be tethered using 4-point steel cables, rated for 5 tons of tension. Subsection 1.2. Surface temperature maintenance. The exterior shell of Device X is composed of a smooth, translucent, ceramic, metallic composite. The temperature must be maintained at exactly 55 degrees Fahrenheit. If the temperature rises to 60 degrees, the surface begins to vibrate at a frequency that causes nausea in personnel within a 50-foot radius. If the temperature drops below 40 degrees, the surface becomes permeable, and tools may accidentally pass through the shell and become lost within the interior void. Imagine the sound of the technician's wrench, the metallic clink as it hits the floor, the low hum of the cooling units. Section 2. Lubrication and cooling. The cooling system for Device X does not use water or oil. It requires a continuous flow of synthetic coolant 7. The manual describes this liquid as having a viscosity of 0.0001 centipoise thinner than air. The technician must check the flow rate gauges every 30 minutes. Normal flow, 12 liters per minute. Critical flow, 0 liters per minute. Note: in the event of zero flow, do not attempt to repair the pump. Evacuate the hangar immediately. Do not look back at the device. Section 3. Cleaning Protocols. The shell of the device accumulates a substance the manual calls atmospheric residue. It is described as a fine, violet-colored dust that glows in the dark. The instructions for removal are incredibly specific. Step 1. Use only deionized silk cloths. Step 2. Wipe in a counter-clockwise motion only. Step 3. All used cloths must be placed in a lead-lined incinerator. Step 4. If the dust comes into contact with human skin, the affected area must be treated with a solution of silver nitrate and kept in total darkness for 72 hours. Section 4. The interior interface. There are no buttons on device X. There are no switches. There are no wires. The manual describes the control interface as a series of recessed indentations shaped like human hands, but with 6 fingers. The instructions for engagement are as follows. The operator must place their hands within the indentations. The operator must maintain a steady heart rate of 60 beats per minute. The operator must project a mental image of a perfect sphere. Note: if the operator thinks of anything other than a sphere, the device will emit a high-pitched tone and the hanger's gravity will invert for approximately 3 seconds. At the back of the manual, there is a troubleshooting table. Problem: device is humming in the key of B-flat. Solution: tighten the floor bolts. Problem: device has become transparent. Solution: wait 4 hours for the phase shift to conclude. Problem: device is whispering the names of the technician's deceased relatives. Solution: this is a known acoustic resonance. Use earplugs. The manual ends with a list of authorized spare parts. It includes items like quartz resonators, gold-plated shims, and replacement void seals. Each part has a price. Each part has a part number. The bureaucracy has taken the most alien object in human history and turned it into a series of chores. It has reduced the infinite to a checklist. You can almost feel the weight of the blue canvas cover as it closes, the click of the 3-ring binder, the sound of the manual being slid back onto the shelf. Section 8. The Test Pilot Debriefings. The Curvature of Perspective. As the maintenance manuals for Device X were being finalized, a new set of documents was created in the pressurized briefing rooms of Edwards Air Force Base. These are the Aero Medical Debriefing Transcripts, specifically the Series 900 files from 1955 to 1959. These documents record the testimonies of the men chosen to interact with the device men who were stripped of their names and referred to only by their aeronautical designators. The transcripts are typed on thin, translucent onion skin paper. The ink is a faint purple, the result of a tired mimeograph machine. Each page is stamped Top Secret, Eyes Only, Archive Disposal Grade A. We begin with the debriefing of Pilot Echo 7, following a 30-minute static interface test on January 12, 1956. The interviewer asks, "Describe the sensation of the cabin at T+5 minutes." Pilot Echo 7 responds, "The cabin did not feel like a cabin. It felt like the inside of a lung. The walls were moving in time with my breath. When I reached for the primary control indentation, my hand appeared to be 6 feet long. I could see the individual cells of my skin, but they were arranged in a honeycomb pattern. I felt a sense of profound boredom, followed by the smell of burnt ozone." The interviewer records this as, "Subject experienced minor spatial disorientation and olfactory hallucinations. As you listen, imagine the small, windowless room where these men sat, the single bare light bulb, the reel-to-reel tape recorder spinning slowly, the brown magnetic tape clicking as it passes the head. We move to the debriefing of Pilot Delta Niner, dated August 14th, 1957. This test involved a phase shift maneuver. The interviewer asks, "State your position at the peak of the shift." Pilot Delta. Niner responds, "I was not in the seat. I was behind the seat, looking at the back of my own head. I could see the stitching in my flight suit. I could see the dust motes dancing in the air behind my left ear, but I was also in the seat, looking forward at the hangar wall. The hangar wall was no longer solid. It looked like a series of vertical lines, like a barcode. I could see the men in the next room. They were not moving. They were frozen in a layer of amber." The interviewer records this as, "Subject reported a failure in the rear-view mirror assembly and temporary visual lag." Section 4 of the transcript covers the temporal discrepancies. During a flight on November 3, 1958, pilot Sierra 4 was recorded as being inside the device for exactly 12 minutes, according to the base's atomic clock. However, his own mechanical wristwatch, a standard-issue Hamilton, showed that 3 days had passed. The interviewer asks, "Did you experience 3 days of flight?" Pilot Sierra 4 responds, "I experienced a single heartbeat that lasted for 72 hours. I watched the sun rise and set through the hangar roof as if it were a strobe light. I didn't feel hunger. I only felt the hum of the device. It was counting. It was counting down to a number that hasn't been invented yet." The debriefings end with the standard exit interview. The pilots were asked if they would recommend the device for general service. Every pilot answered no. When asked why, they didn't cite the danger or the physics. They cited the after image. Record of pilot Alpha 1, 1959. "I can still see it when I close my eyes. Even now, in this room, I can see the lines of the world. The walls aren't real. The desk isn't real. It's all just a projection on a screen that's about to be turned off. I would like to go home now, but I'm not sure which home I belong to anymore." The interviewer's final note on the file is, "Pilot Alpha 1 is recommended for permanent reassignment to the Logistics Division in Anchorage, Alaska. Suggest immediate destruction of all personal journals and letters. Subject is no longer compatible with three-dimensional reporting. The folder is closed. The tape recorder is stopped. The pilots were moved to different bases, given different names, and told that the things they saw were atmospheric refraction or high-altitude hypoxia. But the transcripts remained. They were filed in the inconclusive drawer, where they have sat for decades, the purple ink slowly fading into the gray of the onion skin paper." Section 9. The final disposal manifests the concrete shroud. By the late 1960s, the paper trail for these projects did not simply end, it was systematically dismantled. These are the final disposal manifests of the Office of Records Management. These documents are the ultimate expression of bureaucratic erasure, a meticulous, line-by-line accounting of how to make a decade of history disappear. We begin with Operation Pulp. This was the directive to shred and chemically neutralize 42,000 linear feet of documentation stored at the Maryland Annex. Disposal log item, Alpha 0 Niner 8. Material, 312 boxes of research and development, special propulsion. Method, industrial cross-cut shredding followed by acid immersion. Completion date, October 14th, 1967. Witness, Agent ID 4401. Imagine the sound of the shredders, a low, industrial growl that lasted for 24 hours a day. Millions of words like anti-gravity, non-human, and transdimensional being reduced to white, fiberless sludge. The manifests record the weight of the sludge, 12.5 tons. This sludge was then pressed into bricks and used as non-structural fill for the foundation of a new suburban post office. Next, we look at the decommissioning of physical sites. Site entry, testing range, 7, Nevada. Action, Structural entombment. Procedure. The underground laboratory, measuring 12,000 square feet, was cleared of all non-fixed equipment. The ventilation shafts were sealed with 3 feet of reinforced grade A concrete. The primary elevator shaft was filled with 500 cubic yards of volcanic aggregate. The manual for this entombment specifies that the concrete must be poured without gaps or air pockets to ensure that no atmospheric leakage could occur from the lower levels. The cost of the concrete alone was listed as $250,000. On the public ledger, this was recorded as erosion control and land stabilization. We move to the equipment liquidation lists. These are the records of the machines that had seen too much. Item 1 high. Frequency particle accelerator, modified. Status: dismantled. Method: plasma torch cutting into sections no larger than 6 inches. Disposition: melted down in a vacuum furnace and recast as standard steel rebar for the interstate highway system. Imagine the atoms of those experimental machines now resting beneath the tires of thousands of family station wagons, buried in the asphalt of the American dream. Section 5 of the manifest covers personnel redaction. This does not list names, but service records. Entry: 112 Special Project Employment Files. Action: merged into the General Social Security database with null interest modifiers. Note: all retirement benefits to be paid out from a private insurance annuity based in the Cayman Islands. No further government contact is authorized. The final document in this folder is the Certificate of Totality. It is a single sheet of paper, signed by a man whose name has been redacted with a heavy black marker. It states that as of December 31st, 1969, Project Paperclip and its subsequent offshoots no longer exist within the jurisdictional reality of the United States government. But if you look at the energy requisition logs for the year 1970, a strange detail remains. While the bases were officially sealed and empty, the electrical meters at Site 4 and Range 7 continued to spin. They were recorded as drawing 4 million kilowatt hours per month, enough to power a small city. The clerk noted this as a parasitic load caused by old wiring. He filled out the form. He filed it in the boring drawer. He went home. The documents tell us the story is over. The concrete is dry. The paper is pulp. The ink is gone. But in the deep quiet of the archive, the meters are still spinning. The silence is still heavy, and the ledgers, though empty, still have a weight that can be felt by anyone who dares to read between the lines. Section 10. The private corporate handoff. The subsidiary shadow. By the mid-1970s, the records indicate a shift. The data trail does not end at the concrete seal. It merely changes letterheads. This is the era of the contracted subsidiary, where the artifacts and research of the 1950s were transferred into the private sector to avoid the growing reach of the Freedom of Information Act. We are looking at the asset transfer agreements between the Department of Defense and several shell corporations with names like Aerodyne Logistics and General Synthesis Incorporated. These documents are filed under commercial outsourcing, a category so vast and mundane that it acts as a secondary shroud. Imagine a boardroom in 1974, wood-paneled walls, heavy crystal ashtrays, and the low hum of a central air conditioning system. On the table sits the lease agreement for Intellectual Property 009er. Item entry: July 12th, 1974. Asset: non-propulsive flight data and material samples. Recipient: Meridian Advanced Research, a subsidiary of a subsidiary. Duration: 99 years. Fee: $1 per year. The $1 lease is a common legal tactic. It allows the government to technically retain ownership while the private corporation takes full physical possession. The manifests for the move are thousands of pages long. They list the transfer of biological samples, unknown alloys, and encrypted magnetic tapes. We scan the corporate inventory logs for 1976. Item: refractive lens assembly. Storage location: Warehouse 40. 2. A windowless facility in an industrial park in Sunnyvale, California. Note: facility is guarded by private security with shoot-to-neutralize authorization. On the local tax maps, this building is listed as a data storage center for medical records. The monotony of the corporate world is even deeper than the military world. We read through the maintenance service contracts. Item: annual calibration of the vacuum chamber. Cost: $600,000. Contractor: a company that, according to the phone book, specializes in repairing industrial washing machines. This is the administrative camouflage. By using mundane contractors for highly specialized tasks, the trail is broken. The plumber who fixes a leak at a secret facility doesn't know he is working on a cooling line for a zero-point reactor. He just knows he is billing account code 6 for 5 hours of labor at a premium rate. Section 12 of the Meridian Ledger covers patent applications. Between 1978 and 1982, these shell companies filed for thousands of patents. If you read the technical descriptions, they seem like minor improvements to existing technology. Patent number: 4,212,381. Description: improved semiconductor coating for high heat environments. But if you look at the chemical formula provided in the fine print, it contains isotopes that are not found in nature. It contains subatomic lattice structures that the patent office clerks did not have the training to understand. They saw a semiconductor coating. They stamped it approved. This is how the secrets of the past became the consumer goods of the future. The impossible alloys of the White Sands Desert were broken down into proprietary components for computer chips, fiber optics, and stealth coatings. The conspiracy didn't disappear. It was commercialized. It was sold back to us in pieces, hidden inside the hardware of our daily lives. The records for these companies are now proprietary information. They are no longer subject to government oversight. They are protected by trade secret laws. The trail has gone from a public archive to a private vault. The ink is now digital. The paper is now a server in a climate-controlled room that requires 3 levels of biometric clearance. As you listen, think of the device in your pocket. The screen, the battery, the quiet hum of the processor. You are holding a piece of the ledger. You are touching the end of a paper trail that began in 1945 in a windowless office in Maryland with a single, rusty paperclip. Section 11. The Legacy Hardware Inventory. The Analog Graveyard. Before the digital shift was finalized, there existed a transitional period where the secrets of the 1950s were stored on physical hardware that is now considered orphaned. These are the records of the Analog Graveyard, a high-security warehouse in North Carolina where the physical remains of the Special Projects machines were sent to be forgotten, but never destroyed. The inventory logs for this facility are typed on green and white striped computer paper, the kind with the perforated holes along the sides. Item entry: 7-7 Alpha. Description: 1 magnetic drum memory unit, salvaged from Project Gleam. Status: offline, but remains magnetized. Note: technicians are forbidden from bringing credit cards or mechanical watches within 10 feet of the unit. Despite having no power source for 30 years, the drum continues to rotate at exactly 1 revolution per hour. The sound is a low, metallic groan that can be heard through the floorboards. Imagine the smell of this warehouse. It is the smell of ozone, burnt vacuum tubes, and old hydraulic fluid. It is a cold, dry smell that sticks to the back of the throat. Item entry, 82 beta. Description, 12 vacuum, tube arrays. Experimental, national stock number, 000119904. Note, these tubes were part of the original looking glass optical computer. When the warehouse lights are turned off, the tubes emit a faint, pulsing blue glow. The pulses appear to be a sequence of prime numbers. A request was made to dismantle the arrays, but the order was rescinded by an external authority with no department name attached. Next, we look at the storage manifest for magnetic tape reels. There are 10,000 reels stored here, each contained in a round plastic canister. Canister ID, tape 664. Content, telemetry from White Sands, July 1947. Condition, degraded. Analysis, when played on a restored reel-to-reel machine, the tape contains no audio. It contains a spatial displacement signal. The technician who attempted to monitor the tape reported that the speakers in the room began to vibrate so violently that they shattered, yet he heard nothing but absolute silence. He recorded the incident as media degradation error, but he refused to enter the warehouse again. The ledger for the analog graveyard also includes the obsolete uniform and gear section. Item, 24 sets of high-altitude pressure suits. Experimental. Material, lead, woven nylon with gold leaf visors. Condition, contaminated. Note, the suits are stored in airtight glass cases. The logs indicate that the suits appear to inflate themselves every night at 0200 hours, as if they are being worn by something invisible. By 0400 hours, they are flat again. This is attributed to atmospheric pressure fluctuations within the warehouse, despite the facility being climate-controlled. Section 9 of the inventory is the Cabinet of Unidentified Keys. It is a wooden board with 500 brass keys. None of the keys have labels. None of the locks they belong to have ever been found. The logs show that every year, one key is moved from the board to a different hook by an unknown party. There are no security camera recordings of this happening. There are no fingerprints. As you listen, imagine these rows of dead machines. They are the skeletons of the conspiracy. They are the heavy, clunky, physical proof of things that the digital era says are impossible. They sit in the dark, gathering dust, waiting for a signal that was sent 70 years ago to finally arrive. The clerk at the analog graveyard has one job: to count the items. 500 keys, 10,000 tapes, 12 glowing tubes, one rotating drum. The numbers stay the same. The silence stays the same. The machines wait, and as they wait, they hum a sound so low it is felt in the marrow of your bones rather than heard in your ears. Section 12. The Digital Ghost Archives. The Error Log Paradox. As we enter the modern era, the paper archives transition into the digital void. We are no longer looking at manila folders, but at server logs and system directories. These are the records of the ghost server's high-security databanks that appear on no official network map, yet continue to draw power and exchange packets of information across the global infrastructure. We look first at the log files of the National Laboratory Data Centers from the years 2010 to 2020. These files are designated as System Maintenance Reports, Non-Critical. Entry timestamp, August 14th, 2012. 0300 hours, 12 seconds. System, Cluster 9. Error code, 404. Message, directory not found. Note, the system attempted to ping a server located at coordinates 37.2 degrees north, 115.8 degrees west. This is the location of the Nevada Test and Training Range. The server responded with a legacy handshake from a machine running an operating system that has not been supported since 1988. The data being exchanged during these handshakes is not measured in gigabytes or terabytes. It is measured in pulses. November 3rd, 2015. 0000 hours. Packet size 1 byte. Content: the number 0. Duration of handshake: 48 hours. Note: during this 48-hour period, the local power grid reported a harmonic resonance in the transmission lines. The frequency was measured at exactly 7.83 hertz, and this is the same frequency recorded in the medical vetting files of the 1950s. The technicians recorded this as inductive interference from a nearby solar farm. Imagine the sound of a modern server room. Not a hum, but a wash of white noise. The sound of thousands of tiny fans spinning at 10,000 revolutions per minute. The air is cold, exactly 64 degrees Fahrenheit. We scan the automated requisition forms of the modern era. These are no longer signed with ink, but with digital certificates. Item: sub, quantum processing units. Quantity: unknown. Consignee: Project Echo. Status: delivered to a secure facility in the mountains of West Virginia, a radio quiet zone, where cell phones and Wi-Fi are prohibited by law. In these logs we find the automatic redaction algorithm reports. This is a software program designed to scan all incoming data and delete specific patterns before they can be seen by human eyes. Report dated June 19th, 2018. Files scanned, 8 million. Files redacted, 12. Reason: pattern recognition anomaly. The algorithm flagged 12 images taken by a high-altitude weather balloon. The pattern it recognized was a perfect geometric shadow in the surface of the clouds, a shadow that didn't correspond to any aircraft currently in the Federal Aviation Administration database. The algorithm deleted the files in 0.003 seconds. The maintenance logs for these servers show a recurring clock drift. In 2021, the primary server at the Maryland Data Annex was found to be 3 minutes ahead of the global atomic clock. The technicians reset it. 12 hours later, it was 3 minutes ahead again. They replaced the hardware. The drift continued. One technician wrote a private note in the troubleshooting forum before his account was deactivated. He wrote, "The server isn't drifting. The server is fine. It's the room. The room is moving faster than the rest of the building. I left a cup of coffee on the server rack, and when I came back, the coffee was cold." But the server log said only 10 seconds had passed. We aren't just storing data here. We are storing time. This is where the trail ends for now. The digital ghost archives are a loop. The errors repeat. The handshakes continue. The legacy systems of the 1950s are still talking to the fiber optic networks of the 21st century. The bureaucracy has moved into the code. The secrets are now buried in the zero-day vulnerabilities of our world, the holes in the system that we aren't supposed to know exist. As you listen to the white noise of the digital age, remember the administrative intake, the paperclips, the blueprints, the medical records. It is all still here. It is just vibrating at a frequency you have been trained to ignore. Section 13. Final archival closing. The grounding of the ledger. We have reached the end of the current filing cycle. The sun has set over the Maryland Annex, over the desert of Fort Bliss, and over the silent server rooms of the Silicon Valley. The documents have been processed. The stamps have been applied. The ink is dry. As you prepare to leave the archive, imagine the sound of the final heavy steel doors swinging shut. It is a slow, pressurized movement. It carries the weight of 8 decades of secrets. Hear the click of the deadbolt. A seal is complete. Your mind is now like this archive. The thoughts of the day are being organized into folders. The worries are being placed into manila envelopes. The questions are being stamped with the word pending. You do not need to solve the mysteries tonight. You only need to file them away. Imagine the long, dark aisles of the record room, row after row of gray steel cabinets. Each drawer is a memory. Each folder is a task completed. One by one, you see the drawers sliding shut. The drawer for Huntsville, slide shut. The drawer for White Sands, slide shut. The drawer for the black budget, slide shut. The air in the archive is cool and still. There is no wind here. There is no light. There is only the peaceful, heavy silence of information at rest. You are a clerk of your own consciousness, and your shift has ended. The lights in the hallway are flickering out, one by one, moving further and further away from you. The first light goes out, the second light goes out, the third light goes out. You are standing in the soft, velvet darkness of the deep archive. It is a safe place. It is a quiet place. Everything is documented. Everything is accounted for. There are no missing pages in your mind tonight. The ledger is balanced. As you drift deeper, the numbers we read begin to lose their meaning. 1945, 1952, 2025. They are just vibrations in the air. 400 units, 12 liters, 0.5 millimeters. They're just patterns of sound, fading into the background hum of the universe. You are now entering the static quiescence mentioned in the medical files. Your heart rate is steady, your breathing is slow. Your brain waves are beginning to match the frequency of the earth, 7.83 hertz. A low, constant, comforting pulse. The archive is locked, the guards have gone home, the desert is silent, the stars are in their proper places, the bureaucracy of the day is over. You are declassified. You are authorized to rest. You are cleared for sleep. Close the folder, turn off the lamp, let the silence take the record.